proposed fee modification.
Just very briefly, I haven't had an opportunity to review the entire package, but in the cursory look, it appears that fees are going up in the 15% range, perhaps on average. And given that the significant part of the fees that are charged are based on the labor involved in supplying that particular service, it seems that the average fee increase ought to be a whole lot closer to whatever the COLA has been or whatever the average wage for Mendocino County employees has been. And I think that if you take a look at that as a benchmark and compare that to the fee increases, you'll see that those fees are going up substantially more than that in many, many cases. Thank you.
And your name for the record, sir?
Richard Selzer.
Thank you. Other members of the public wishing to speak to this item? Okay, I see no one coming forward, so I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Pinches.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I have a complete record of my votes on absorbent fee increases. I think Mr. Seltzer hit the nail on the head. I don't know how you can justify 20, 30, 40, 50, up to 100% fee increases when we have basically a 3.5% COLA. And it doesn't play out because every year at the end of the budget time, we've actually have a positive fund balance. So that means actually we've operated our business with less money than we even provided for. So I got, and this kind of sums it up as where my argument of these high fee increases is. I feel it's a function of the auditor's office. Now, this is a statement from the senior auditor. It says here, and I'm going to read this. This says that I have reviewed all the fee increases proposed and found they do not exceed the cost of the service provided or are equal or comparable with other similar agencies charge. You know, I mean, the law says that you can't charge more for a fee than it actually takes to provide it. But the interpretation here says, well, we're going to do it that way, or we'll just charge the same as what other agencies do in there. And this particular one that the statement's on is on our fee increases to our parks. You know, we're proposing up to 100% fee increases in our limited parks in this county. And I don't know, you know, I think that's a strong increase, 100% increase when people are facing $5 gasoline. You know, now you can't, now you got to pay 100% increase if you want to go to a county park. I just think that's way out of line, and the money probably isn't a lot of difference, but to tell the folks out there that we're going to double the price that we charge you to go to a county park that you paid for taxes in the first place, that's just an example of why I don't support these fee increases, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Pinches. Other comments from the board? Took me a minute to find that form that you were referring to, Supervisor Pinches. I'm sorry.
Exhibit A.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, other comments? Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think some of these, and certainly not all of them, but a number of them I do believe that we still have a net county costs on, and one that we'll get to, I'm sure, is the solid waste fees. It's well documented that the fees don't nearly approach the cost of providing the service, and the subsidy out of the general fund dollars for solid waste is hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, even with, in other words, even with, if you go to the recommended increase to take effect January 1st of '09, will only contribute an additional revenue increase of $75,000. But I think, and I'm sure that Mr. DeShiel will be talking about this with us, I believe that it's 10 times that the general fund is subsidizing the department. I think it's close to $700,000. So when you have a $700,000 shortfall, basically, to the cost of doing business, you know, I think that's one that certainly is within reason. In fact, it arguably the public should be perhaps being asked to pay more for a direct service provided to them that they are asking to utilize vis-a-vis using our transfer stations to dispose of just about anything. Some of these others are clearly not that. It's a very different scenario when you have a permit, let's say with planning and building, and it looks like they've scrutinized it pretty well in terms of the actual cost of providing that service. So as the county in this really challenged fiscal environment is still subsidizing a division of Department of Transportation to the degree that, and I believe it approaches $700,000, it seems that this is a reasonable fee increase if it shouldn't even be higher. And I believe it was item number 6, I think I had in my notes from the budget guidelines of the CEO, and perhaps when we get into this issue he can talk about it. And that was that one of the budget balancing strategies needs to be that fee-driven departments need to recoup the fees that it was cost for doing business. And we certainly should be, as Mr. Hall did in our last, as Mr. Seltzer delineated, dropping fees when those are not truly the costs of providing the service. Those fees ought to go down. But we have a number of instances in this county where we made, I think, the policy decision long ago, this is worthwhile, or it just isn't possible to recoup costs, or it's a vital service, or we're going to have other associated costs that will be in excess of subsidizing a particular division to a certain extent if we don't continue to do that. So there are a lot of factors that one has to balance in coming up with these fees. So I think it's important to remember that there are some of these that are receiving a general fund subsidy, and one of the budget instructions from the CEO was that we should minimize, if not discontinue, that business practice, because it's not, in most cases, a winning strategy when you're trying to balance a budget with diminishing returns, and you have a lot of vital services that require those general fund dollars, and in a sense, you're really subsidizing individuals to discard many different items if they're using our transfer stations, because we're picking up the bill. So that's just a general comment I wanted to make. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Other comments from the board? To the CEO's office.
Thank you. I wanted to briefly address the issue of the COLA. COLA is only what you do at the front end. By the time you apply the multiplier factor and you apply that to retirement and FICA and all the other things, it rises above that initial 3.5%. In addition, many of our employees are entitled to a 5% raise every year. So if you look at it from just a purely staffing standpoint, if you had new employees that were going to work for you and you had a COLA going through at 3.5%, I would expect in that year you would see an 11.5% increase just on the base. And then on top of that, by the time you apply